Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven, and this is the Storytime channel. Today we have some malicious compliance stories, and our first story of the day is by No Masterpiece 636. Accused of plagiarism, forced to apologize, got a 0, and they failed me in all of my long STEM classes. Told I would never graduate without another year of attendance. All of the recent malicious compliance stories about bad teachers had me thinking about a bit of stupidity when I was graduating high school in 2003. In grade 9, in the glorious year of 2000, the year Y2K turned the world into a dystopian hellscape, I decided to apply for the International Baccalaureate program, which was replacing the standard AP classes at our local school. I did fairly well in grades 10 and 11. I took a full course each year and filled my entire class list, so I never had any spares, which is what we called an hour without classes where you were free to do whatever you wanted. Usually people had 1 spare in grade 10 and 2 spares in grade 11 if you were going for the bare minimum of credits to graduate. I decided to load up my course load, and by the end of grade 11, I had 19 of 24 credits I needed to graduate high school. In grade 12, I decided that the IB program wasn't for me. There were all sorts of issues with the program and how it was handled by the teaching staff. Enter my grade 12 English 30 teacher, Mr. Thompson. From September to mid-November, I was a very diligent student. I attended every day, did my work, and usually spent most of the class reading books that I enjoyed, mainly fantasy and sci-fi like Wheel of Time and Game of Thrones. We were getting into a creative writing aspect of the class, and we were assigned to write a 1,000-word story. I, being a person who was writing fiction for most of my elementary and teen years, decided to just take some fanfiction I published on fanfiction.net and submit it as my story. I wrote it already, so why write another story when I didn't want to? 2 weeks later, I was asked to come down to the principal's office. I saw my story printed out on their desk and deduced what was going on. When they came in, it was the vice principal, the principal, my English teacher, and my father. They gave me this huge spiel about getting a 0 on the assignment, and if I didn't apologize to Mr. Thompson for plagiarizing in his class, I would fail the year and have to repeat the grade. I explained diligently that it was my story, brought up the website on the office computer, showed them it was attached to my email, even logged into the email to prove that the username on the account was mine. It didn't matter, they were convinced I had plagiarized and wanted a formal, written apology. I was stubborn and flat out refused. They suspended me and sent me home, where my father berated me further, telling me to write an apology. I had had enough at this point. I just stopped attending every class besides my physics, biology, and computer science classes. Those teachers were a little younger, more computer savvy, and believed my explanation, so I was cool with them. I would go to a STEM class, leave, and deliberately walk by the door of any teacher's door that was in the arts department. I sometimes even poked my head in to say hi to a friend and then leave as soon as the class started. This, of course, made them even more upset. They said I would never pass grade 12 without smartening up and apologizing for the mistake of using my own story for an assignment. Cue 7 months of this. I got a job at a gas station across the street from the school, so I spent most of my free time working there, making some money, and getting time away to attend the 3 classes I enjoyed. On my days off, I would sometimes go fishing or play Unreal Tournament all day in the computer lab with the blessings of my comp sci teacher. I had over 120 absent days by the end of the school year, and they were absolutely convinced I was going to fail. Unfortunately for them, all of my grade 11 classes were grade 12 classes, or equivalents recognized by our school board, and some had even qualified for university credits. I skipped graduation photos, I skipped the prom, I skipped everything that went on at that school, except for the 3 classes I needed. Graduation arrived and the art/social science department was convinced I wasn't getting my diploma, but I showed up to the ceremony in my favorite fashion. A silk Hawaiian shirt, good jeans, and my leather jacket. Yes, I was a stylish guy, sue me. I stood in line in alphabetical order, and when they called my name with a giant question mark behind it, my photo from graduation was a black silhouette projected up on the screen, and I walked up when they called my name. The looks on my teachers' faces, who were all sitting up on the stage as guests of honor, were livid when I got my diploma. They had worked their butts off to deny it to me, but I had made my case to the school board when the final report cards were released, and they agreed to give me my diploma. I still remember the poop-eating grin on my face when I walked straight off the stage and out of the emergency exit near the stage. That feeling is still burned into my brain. It was one of my favorite days I can remember. So although OP does have some kind of point here, there is still self-plagiarism, where if you go and use a previous written work you did for something that's presented as completely new and original, you're still self-plagiarizing. What do you guys think? Do you think OP plagiarized in the story by using an older written work for an assignment, or do you think OP was justified and totally in the clear? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Data Nerd 1011. Accuse me of cheating on an open book collaborative exam? Fine, I'll report myself to the Honor Council. This happened about 10 years ago at my American university. I enrolled in a class that two friends also happened to enroll in, an elective for our major. The professor, whom I'll call Professor Y, told us straight off the bat that our entire grade would be based on 2 exams that would be open book and we could collaborate with anyone else in the class, as long as we cited that we did so. Additionally, it was the kind of exam where you could submit it as many times as you want before the deadline. Professor Y's rules, though, were that he'd grade easiest on the first try and much tougher with each subsequent try. Fair enough. Now, some background on this professor. I'm not defending him, but I do think this context is important. He immigrated to the States from another country where women are seen as inferior, and the often expectations of women are to be meek and quiet. Maybe less so nowadays, but definitely more so when he was growing up. In class one day, a female student challenged the professor. He argued back. She admitted he made a good point, and he said to her, "You are very agreeable. You'd make a great wife." Now, at this point, I probably should have reported him for sexism. However, we all apparently let it slide. He was in his late 60s, he had tenure, so I think we all brushed it aside as harmless. Hindsight 2020. I am female, by the way. Fast forward a few weeks into the semester, and the first exam is given to us. My male friend David and I did the test together. We submitted it on the same day. On the bottom of the test, I wrote, "Worked with David," because I wanted to follow the professor's rules. A few days later, we all got our first attempt at the test back. David scored the equivalent of about a C. Remember, he had further chances to improve. My test had a big fat 0 at the top with the words "cheater" written on it. I was shocked. I obviously held back after class and asked why this was written on my test, and Professor Y started screaming at me, "I hate liars. I hate people like you. You are scum. You are a liar." I could not believe what I was hearing. I was sobbing, explaining that he said, and it was in the syllabus, that we could work with other students. I asked where I had cheated, and Professor Y had literally underlined the first 5 words of one question, where both David and I had started off the paragraph saying something like, "The reason that we are seeing these results is," and that was it. I asked him why he thought I cheated, but not David. But Professor Y would not listen to me and continued to insult me until I left. Now, my university was super strict about plagiarism and cheating. We got emails like once a week about the Honor Council. All the emails said that anyone caught cheating would be reported to the Honor Council and sit trial. So I went to their office and reported myself. They were all confused and were like, "Wait, you're reporting yourself, not the professor?" And I told them calmly that I had been accused and given a 0 without any evidence, so I wanted to sit trial. They incredulously told me no student had ever asked for a trial, but I was following with university rules, and I was confident I would win. Needless to say, Professor Y was not happy. At the next class, he pulled me after class and screamed yet again that they were his rules in his class, and he decides the grades, not the Honor Council. I said that's not the university's policy, and if he thought I was cheating, he should have gone to them. Since he didn't, I did. He was livid and tried to bully me to back down, but I didn't. We had the trial, and I obviously won. At the end of the semester, I organized a meeting with the dean of the school and filed a formal sexism complaint against Professor Y. The dean, also incredulous, promised to launch a formal investigation into this professor and would be meeting with him to discuss. I'm sure that nothing happened besides a slap on the wrist, but even a slap on the wrist was worth it. I definitely think it's pretty easy to agree with OP here that there's something very obviously not politically correct about this professor in this day and age. Regardless of when and how they grew up, there was definitely some big level of baseline bias here, and it's unfortunate that the women in his class had to experience that. Our next story is by So Sinlos. I really have to go. Urgent. When I was a youngster, 12 or 13 years old, I went with a friend to the next village. It was a hot day, and before we took off, we had a drink. Lemonade, I guess. Halfway there, we came to a restaurant/bar, guest house, with an old, unfriendly owner. It was Saturday and the place was open. I went in and asked if I can use the restroom. He asked, "Do you have to pee or poop?" I said, "I have to pee." He told me only paying guests were allowed to use the restroom. "Go somewhere outside," he told me. The place was between two small villages right at the woods, so I left, and the next best somewhere I found were the flower boxes beside his house, full of pink geraniums. I peed on the flower boxes, and when I was halfway done, he came out yelling and swearing at me. I yelled back, "Sir, you said to go somewhere outside, and that's what I did." He was so baffled and annoyed, he just stood there with his mouth open. Happy ending. My dad used to go to the place every now and then, and the next time he was there, the owner told him the story because he knew that I was his son. My dad came home, told me that he knows all about it. I have never seen him so amused about something I did wrong, and he never punished me for it. Not only did they say only paying customers can use the restroom, they knew that their dad was a frequent customer and still said no to them. Like, come on, somebody has to go pee real quick. That's not gonna hurt anybody or anything. And our final story of the day is by a night owl. Tell Cersei, I wanted to know it was me. When I started college, the foreign language requirement at my school was waived if you tested beyond level 3. The test was multiple choice, and you were allowed to take it once in the language you choose, but you could do it at any time during your enrollment. This was made clear to me and the other folks my major during our freshman orientation. 4 years later, I took the test for Spanish. It placed me in level 4 and told me I was eligible to apply to the waiver with the corresponding department. So I did. 2 weeks later, I got a strange email. It was from the Romantic Languages department, and it told me that the rules have changed and I needed to go on campus to take a written and oral portion of the exam. This was news to me, but given that I spoke Spanish well, I went for it. I had a 15-minute conversation with a blonde lady who had neither pen and paper and wrote an essay about environmental conservation. 4 other people took the exam as well. One of them was a Mexican-American girl who apparently tested into level 6, but got called anyway. I didn't think much about this until a week into the last semester. I received an email saying I didn't pass and had to take a class in Spanish if I wanted to graduate in the following fall. This pissed me off since I was scheduled to graduate that spring and start grad school in the fall. I go down to the department and ask to see my test. The guy refuses. I ask to see my oral exam grade. He refuses again. I leave, wondering how I'm supposed to tell my grad school. Just then, I see the same Mexican-American girl running up the stairs. I asked her if she got her test back. She said she was going to see now because they told her she didn't pass. At that point, I realized something stupid was going on, so I went with her and watched the same thing happen to her. After she came out, I went back in and asked for a printout of my multiple choice exam, which I know I had a score. I told them it was so I could email it to my grad school and explain that I need to start half a year later. He didn't seem to believe me, but I told him I was either going to get the printout from him or ask the college's administration to call my law school. His expression immediately changed to alarm. Grudgingly, he printed out a copy and told me while waving the paper in my face that I was to send this directly to the law school and not to bother the college administration. He made me promise not to give this to anyone except the law school. I did. On my way out, I Xeroxed this and made an appointment with the dean's office. Apparently, they didn't even know the Romantic Languages department had changed its waiver requirement. Though the lady I spoke with wasn't surprised given that the department was having financial problems. According to her, the idea for the change had been floated the previous year as a way for the department to gain funds, but was ultimately never ruled on. Either way, she waived my foreign language requirement. 2 weeks later, I get an angry call from the Romantic Language department. Same guy, something about him specifically instructing me not to give this to the administration. I told him I didn't, said I still had this, and was willing to show him if he didn't believe me. I asked him why he called me. He wouldn't answer, gave a half-butt apology, and hung up. A few days later, a college-wide email went out stating the changes to the foreign language requirement would not apply to any of the thousands of upperclassmen. You can't even begin to understate how messed up this is. Trying to force people to come back to foreign languages in the fall for another semester just because you want to milk some more money from these people by blindsiding them? Most likely ruining potential thousands of students' requirements and future plans? That's unbelievably messed up. That's like class action lawsuit worthy. If that college-wide email was all that came out of that, I'd be pretty darn surprised. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So, until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.